Hi everybody, it's John Demartino, and I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and looks forward to a Merry Christmas and a very, very prosperous New Year. I usually talk about sales tips for salespeople in the field. And I love sales and I have a passion for it, but I also always want to make sure that that team in the field that is going through the putting in the work every day, that those sales leaders realize the best way to have your team be in the position to get that success, to achieve their goals and make big incentive checks and really delight your clients. And so this one is really going to be for the sales leaders. It's only going to be on two facets of sales, and really we got to always remember the basics. No matter what it is, whether you are Tom Brady, you need to have good basics, right? Or a freshman quarterback going into high school. Basics are basics, and if you don't have a strong foundation for leadership, and realize that you're at the leadership table and you have to be grateful that you're at the leadership table, and make sure you're giving your all to your team. And don't be selfish. You don't look at your team as a way to make more money. You look at your team as a way to enrich their lives and helping them, achieve their goals by helping our clients. And a happy team will always provide great client experience. So let's get into it. The two things I want to talk about is point number one, expectations. Expectations are probably the most important message you have to your team when you first meet with them. And it's not a message that you don't say again. It's not just a one-time deal. You want to be repetitious with that message. So let's see. You have an expectation of your team. So you go through the details, right? What are your sales goals? What time you come to work? What's the dress code? What's the policies and procedure of whatever company you're at? Right, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever it is that the full expectation of your team and each one of your sales associates, what is the expectation you have from them and what they can expect from you as a leader? And that message needs to be very consistent with every single teammate. And the messaging, again, needs to be repetitious, because if you have your own company or you're working for a company, you want to make sure that that mission statement, that strategy, is continually messaged the same way consistently to every single teammate, because that's the way they're really going to sink in, and that's the way you start to get buy-in. So when you set those expectations, that's a great start. And if you're doing that already as a sales leader, congratulations, you're doing right by your team. But what happens when you set those expectations, when you provide resources, when you do shoulder-to-shoulder coaching and you're sitting with your sales team and you're creating great action plans for them and you're developing their sales skill and you're giving them resources that they can go and self-educate on, and you're doing everything you need to do as a leader, and only you know that when you look in the mirror, when you come home, if you made one of your salespeople better that day that you visited with. Now, if you have done your job and you have given them the resources and the coaching and the action plans, and they're still not achieving or still not doing what's expected of them, and you start to identify that it's a will issue, not a skill issue, because you've skilled them up and developed them. When you have a will issue, what that means is your associate is not choosing to be part of the team, is choosing just not to do what you're asking. Choosing not to do what you put your time in to them in developing them and coaching them and following an action plan. So that leads right into the next area where it's very, very important, again, to be consistent with everybody, how you do this, and it's accountability and recognition. And you need to be equal in your vigor in both. You don't always want to come down on people when they're not doing good and just, really performance manage your salespeople every single time they misstep. And anytime they achieve their goals, you're nowhere to be found, right? You want to make sure that balance is very, very equal. You hold them to account. So what does that look like? So once you've identified that it is a will issue, right, you start to performance manage them. And so what this may be is you may pay a little bit closer attention to what they're doing, right? Because you don't want someone toxic to toxify the whole team. And so you make sure you hold them accountable. But if they're again, this has to be consistent. So you may do a coaching with that person, right? If they're still not continuing to do anything, then you may go from a coaching to maybe a verbal warning, right? That gets put into some type of tool to start to record in black and white what you're doing. If they're still not doing it, then they go to a written warning and then a final written warning, and then termination could come up, right? Sometimes holding your associates to account is what drives them. And you may see a turnaround and save them, but if you don't hold them to account of what you're saying, you're just letting them float thinking everything is okay, even if they're not doing the job they're supposed to do. And so what happens is when the hammer does come and they do get chopped off the team, right? When that happens, they don't know why, because you've never spoken to them, you've never put them on that warning. And if there's another associate that's doing the same thing, make sure you have the same amount of accountability for both, and it's consistent and the same. So that's the accountability side. Recognition side is you have somebody who's knocking it out of the park. You teach them, they execute. You teach them, they execute. They're performing, they're selling, they're delighting our clients. They're mentoring other sales associates, going over and beyond. Well, what do you do for them? Shout that from the rooftops to get them the exposure they deserve, right? And you also, what do they win? They win some awards, maybe gift cards to their favorite establishment, right? So they can enjoy it with their families. Maybe they win Pinnacle, or maybe they become the next sales leader. So holding your team to account will have them respect you, because you're creating those boundaries and not letting them shortchange themselves nor the team. And you'll get their respect. And if you recognize and reward your team when they do the right thing with the same amount of vigor, they'll love you. And what you'll find is your sales team, and this works with a sales team, if you are playing on a football team and you're a leader, right? No matter what it is, it works in any aspect of your life, setting expectations, holding people to account, and rewarding them in the appropriate way when they do what you ask of them and are achieving and exceeding their goals. You will create a team that will ride or die with you. They will bend over backwards for you when you're there, when you're not there, because they see that you are really there to make sure that they're achieving their goals, and you are grateful for your team and to be their leader. So sales leaders, this is real important to me, because sales is the holy grail to me. And if you treat your sales teams right, you will be rewarded monetarily 10 times over. But make sure you're treating your sales team right. And everybody, have a Merry Christmas. And in 2020, may it be wealthy and healthy for you. And I'll see you next time.